I was asked to come here and speak to you today in my capacity as a vegan doctor, and they wanted me to talk to you about the benefits, the health benefits of a vegan diet. But here's the thing. Veganism is not a diet. It's a commitment, a moral commitment to nonviolence. It's a commitment to the animals, to not harm them, to not use them or exploit them in any way. So the reality about the health aspect here is that you can eat a whole foods, plant-based diet for your health and still not be vegan. And you can be a vegan who also eats an unhealthy diet. There's this disturbing conflation of veganism and health. And while veganism can certainly be a reflection of health, it is not necessarily so. So, though I think that talking about the benefits and the health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet is completely reasonable and an important discussion, it feels to me that National Animal Rights Day is not the time to do it, because ultimately, health is about us and veganism is about them. So instead, I would like to talk to you as a vegan doctor about something else that I know, which is of, unfortunately, the utmost importance in the medical community, and that is the use of animals in laboratories and research facilities for testing. It's really hard to know the exact number because it's really hard to get these numbers. They're not very well regulated. But it's estimated that anywhere between 115 million and 127 million animals are currently confined in laboratories on an annual basis. 26 million of those animals are confined in research laboratories and used and killed every year here in the United States. And here's where it gets interesting. Of those 26 million animals, 25 million of them are mice, rats, fishes, and birds, all of whom are quite conveniently not covered under the Animal Welfare Act. So 25 million of them don't even need, that's an estimate because we don't even need to account for them. They basically account for a little bit over 1 million a year. There are a lot of inherent ethical issues in using animals for medical research, but if we accept the belief that animals are similar to us enough in ways that would make them scientifically meaningful subjects of experimentation, then we really have to ask ourselves how we can justify inflicting pain, suffering, and death on these millions of animals who are so similar to us. On the flip side, the anatomic, metabolic, and physiologic differences between the animals and humans actually makes them very poor research models for human health. Far more often than not, the results of these animals' experiments are ultimately found to be useless and or of absolutely no scientific value when trying to extrapolate that data to human health. For example, over 90% of the drugs that pass in animal models fail in the human trials. That's an unacceptable number. The animals who are used in laboratory research facilities suffer, and they suffer in a number of different ways. They suffer when they are prematurely separated from their mothers at birth. They suffer as they are transported, often not handled with care, onto research facilities. They suffer from confinement being in this laboratory environment. They suffer when they cannot, They suffer when they cannot engage in social bonding or with other members of their species or express their natural behaviors. And of course, they suffer when experiments and procedures are being done on them. And while it might have been argued in the past that there was a reasonable alternative or there wasn't an reasonable alternative to animal testing, there's certainly no justification for it today. Animal testing is archaic, outdated model of scientific research. There's no need to cause pain and suffering to animals when we nowadays have sophisticated computer systems, mathematical models, human tissue and cell cultures, and when more focused clinical studies can better and more reliably show us what happens in our bodies during disease or in response to different medications and drugs. But I know more about animal testing than I ever would care to, because very much to my regret, I used to be someone who experimented on animals. When I was 16 years old, I made the decision that I was passionate about health sciences and I wanted to pursue a potential career in medicine. And so I took a summer job working in a basic science research center where I learned how to handle, experiment on, and eventually kill every single one of my subjects who were rats. In my desire to do my job well and get the recommendations that I needed in order to move forward in my career, or so I thought, I had learned to overcome my inherent aversion to handling these animals. They were scratching, they were biting, they were fighting me, trying to stop me from doing what I needed to do to them. I would take them by my hand, I would pinch their small arms between my thumb and my index finger so as to cross their arms so they couldn't bite down on me. And then I would impale their abdomens with a very long, very thick needle, and I would deliver anesthetic to them, hopefully rendering them at least motionless, but very often not unconscious. And then I would commence my daily task, cutting into their small bodies, administering different drugs to them, collecting specimens of blood and urine before ending the experiment, which always, without fail, meant killing them. So I dissociated from the truth of what I was actually doing. I had to, I was 16. I didn't know what to do, and I knew I had to go through with this job. I told myself the usual lies, that it was necessary, this was for the betterment of science, they don't feel pain the way we do, it's really necessary, and just stop anthropomorphizing and being really sentimental. Well, even as a 16-year-old, that didn't sit well with me. There was a significant part of me that felt that the research that I was conducting on members of other species in the hope of understanding those effects in humans was utterly unnecessary and fundamentally flawed. Though I never dared say this to anyone back then. But the hard truth about my time in the research laboratory, 4 years of it, and the hard truth about the time of so many others around the world like myself, is that nothing scientifically beneficial to humans came out of the research that we did. Nothing. It was all done in the name of science, and yet nothing of value to human health was attained. I feel it's critically important for those of us who were indoctrinated into the world of animal research and experimentation and then woken up to the realities of animal sentience and abuse, not shy away from the horrors of our past. We need to speak up, as I'm doing here today. We need to make people aware that vivisection is not just a horror for the animals. It also affects the perpetrators of those experiments as well. Just like those who are charged with doing the brutal and dirty work on our behalf in slaughterhouses, murdering animals for their flesh, vivisection isn't just a horror for the animals. It can negatively and deeply impact the lives and the spirits of people like myself who were charged to do this dirty work. We don't want our healthcare providers, the very people charged with the sacred task of caring for and ministering to us in our times of need, to be indoctrinated into a system where the non-consensual use of sentient non-human beings for medical research is the norm. We don't want those charged with promoting health and saving lives, taught to do this by killing animals. It's 2016. We know better. We ought to do better. Thank you very much.